Listen closely, because starting right now, you are going to learn how to become emotionally bulletproof. Not harder, not colder, but stronger. So strong that people, circumstances, and pressure can no longer touch your inner core. You've been reacting for too long, absorbing too much, breaking in places no one can see. This audiobook is your blueprint for mental fortitude. The skill of staying calm when everyone else collapses, the discipline of thinking clearly in the heat of chaos, and the power of not letting anything or anyone steal your composure again. This is where strength is built. This is where you regain control. Chapter 1. Stop breaking at the first sign of pressure. Pressure exposes the truth. It doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about your comfort. Pressure reveals who you are when the world stops giving you time to think, when the moment forces you to act, when everything inside you wants to run or hide or collapse. And that's exactly why pressure is powerful. Because pressure is a test, not a threat. A test. Most people fail the test because they misread it. They feel pressure, and they assume something is wrong. They feel pressure, and they assume they're not ready. They feel pressure, and they assume they're being attacked. But listen closely. Pressure is not here to break you. Pressure is here to reveal you. Asterisk, asterisk. And you've been misreading the signs for too long. You break at the first sign of discomfort because nobody taught you this truth. Hold the line. Say it. Repeat it. Own it. Hold the line. That phrase will follow you through this chapter because it must become automatic. Muscle memory. A mental reflex. The thing you whisper to yourself the moment your chest tightens, the moment your mind panics, the moment your emotions want to take over. You hold the line. Let's talk about what happens when most people face pressure. They react instantly, emotionally, automatically. Someone criticizes them and they explode. Someone ignores them and they spiral. Someone disagrees and they lose control. Pressure touches their ego and their ego detonates. But mentally strong people play a different game entirely. Here's the difference. The weak person reacts. The strong person pauses. Asterisk, asterisk. That pause is everything. That pause is control. That pause is power. That pause is the difference between a person who keeps breaking and a person who becomes unbreakable. You have a choice. That's the key. You always have a choice. You can either surrender to the pressure, or you can use it as a trigger to rise. Let me give you a real-world example. Two people are given the same stressful moment. A deadline hits. Something goes wrong. Someone throws a problem at them at the worst possible time. The first person panics. Their voice rises. Their thoughts scatter. They crumble under the weight of, "I can't handle this." The second person pauses. One breath, 1 second, one moment of stillness. And in that tiny pocket of calm, they regain control. Nothing magical happened there. They simply held the line. This chapter is about training that exact skill. The pause, the stillness, the moment where your emotions want to run wild, but you refuse to let them. You don't need anyone's permission to do this. You don't need talent. You don't need some special personality type. You need discipline. Not comfort, discipline. Not panic, discipline. Not ego, discipline. Because it's not about how you feel. It's about what you hold. It's about what you refuse to drop when pressure rises. It's about what you protect. You hold your focus. You hold your breath. You hold your composure. You hold the line. Every time you practice this, you build mental armor. Every time you succeed, even once, you create a pattern, a new instinct. And instincts run your life more than motivation ever will. Pressure is training. Pressure is feedback. Pressure is a gym for your emotional strength. But only if you stop treating it like a threat. Only if you stop trying to escape it. Only if you stop trying to negotiate with it. Because pressure won't negotiate with you. Life won't negotiate with you. Stress won't negotiate with you. The moment you treat pressure like a threat, you lose. The moment you treat pressure like a test, you grow. Hear this clearly. You break because you run from pressure. You break because you expect comfort. You break because you think calm is something you're entitled to. But calm is earned. Calm is trained. Calm is built under stress, not away from it. You want to stop breaking? Then stop avoiding the very thing that builds your resilience. The next time pressure hits you, pause. It doesn't matter if it's work, relationships, deadlines, conflict, or uncertainty. Pause. Hold the line. Tell yourself, this is a test. This is my moment. I don't break here. And then breathe. Think. Respond slowly, not impulsively. Because the truth is simple. You don't become mentally strong by hoping life gets easier. You become mentally strong by facing pressure with stability, not panic. Pressure trains you. Pressure sharpens you. Pressure forces you to see what you're really made of, but only if you let it. Only if you stop seeing it as the enemy. Let me give you a mental blueprint you can use today. When you feel your body tense, when you feel your emotions rising, when you feel the urge to react too quickly, say it silently in your mind. Hold the line. That phrase becomes your anchor. It grounds your breath. It pulls you out of emotional chaos. It reminds you that you have a choice. Because you do. You always do. You can choose to break or choose to build. You can choose reaction or choose discipline. You can choose to fall apart or choose to hold the line. This chapter is a foundation for everything that comes next. If you cannot hold the line under pressure, nothing else will work. Not discipline, not emotional control, not resilience, not focus. This is step one. Stop breaking at the first sign of pressure. Stop collapsing every time life gets loud. Stop surrendering just because you feel discomfort. Because discomfort isn't danger. Discomfort is growth. Discomfort is a doorway. Discomfort is your invitation to rise. And you don't need their permission. You don't need the world to support you. You don't need the perfect environment. You need one thing, a decision. A decision to hold the line every time pressure calls your name. A decision to choose strength over reaction. A decision to meet stress with stability. That's how mental fortitude is built. One pressure moment at a time. One choice at a time. One pause at a time. Now you know the truth. Pressure was never the enemy. Your reaction to pressure was. You've taken the first step toward becoming emotionally bulletproof. You've learned to stabilize under force, not collapse because of it. And now, it's time for the next step. You've learned how to face the moment. Now, let's teach you how to master the emotions inside the moment. Chapter 2. Your emotions are signals, not commands. Your emotions are loud. Your emotions are persuasive. Your emotions are convincing. And your entire life changes the moment you realize this one truth. Your emotions are signals, not commands. They show up uninvited. They arrive without asking for permission. They hit you at the wrong time, in the wrong place, with the wrong intensity. But they do not get to decide what you do next. Let me repeat that, because it must be drilled into your mind. They do not get to decide your actions. You do. You always do. You have a choice. That's the key. The mistake most people make is simple. They treat every emotion as truth. They treat every feeling as a directive. They treat every internal reaction like a command they must obey. Fear shows up and they retreat. Doubt shows up and they freeze. Anger shows up and they lash out. Sadness shows up and they shut down. Emotions hit them and they follow blindly. But you're here for a different life. A disciplined life. A mentally strong life. A life where you steer, not your feelings. Listen to this line carefully, because you will hear it throughout this chapter. Feel it, but don't follow it. That's the strategy. That's the practice. That's the transformation. Your emotions aren't the enemy. They're information. They're signals. They're data. A feeling of fear may signal uncertainty. A feeling of anger may signal a boundary crossed. A feeling of doubt may signal unfamiliar territory. The signal is useful. The command is optional. You are not here to become emotionless. You are here to become emotionally disciplined. Because discipline is what separates reaction from control. Discipline is what separates chaos from clarity. Discipline is what separates amateurs from professionals. Let's talk about professionals. Let's talk about people who have mastered the difference between emotion and execution. Picture a professional athlete. not on their best day. Anyone can perform on their best day. Picture them on their worst day. Exhausted, sore, afraid, doubtful, not confident, not motivated. Their body is screaming. Their mind is racing. Their emotions are saying, stop, quit, slow down. You can't do this. And what do? They perform anyway. They execute anyway. They deliver anyway. Because professionals don't rely on emotion. Professionals rely on discipline. They understand the game. When emotions rise, execution must remain stable. They don't wait for the perfect feeling. They don't wait for confidence. They don't wait for motivation. They don't wait for calm. They move. They act. They deliver. Why? Because they've trained one truth into their identity. Feel it, but don't follow it. Fear shows up, they feel it, then execute. Doubt shows up, they feel it, then execute. Pressure shows up, they feel it, then execute. This single principle is the foundation of their greatness. Now let's bring this to you, because this chapter is not about them. It's about what you must start doing. It's about what you must stop doing. When an emotion hits you, your first job is simple. Observe it, don't obey it. Say to yourself, I feel this, but I don't follow this. That line interrupts the emotional impulse. It creates space. It creates separation. It puts you back in control. Because the moment you separate feeling from action, you become a different person, a stronger person, a wiser person, a person who responds instead of reacts. Most people live in emotional autopilot. They don't think, they react. They don't examine, they obey. They don't choose. They follow whatever emotion shouts the loudest. But that's not you anymore. You're choosing something different. You're choosing discipline over impulse. You're choosing direction over chaos. You're choosing clarity over emotional noise. You have a choice. You always have a choice. That's the key. There will be moments when your emotions demand attention. Moments when your chest tightens. Moments when your stomach drops. Moments when your thoughts spiral. When that happens, repeat the rule. Feel it, but don't follow it. The emotion can exist. The emotion can speak. The emotion can yell. But it does not get access to your behavior. It does not get to control your day. It does not get to control your life. You control you. And that's the core of mental fortitude. Because emotional discipline is not about avoidance. It's not about pretending. It's not about forcing positivity. It's about recognition without obedience. It's about noticing without surrendering. It's about awareness without submission. You don't need to fight your emotions. You don't need to suppress them. You don't need to shame yourself for having them. You simply need to stop letting them dictate what you do. Think of every emotion like a knock at your door. You can open the door. You can acknowledge who's standing there. You can say hello. But you do not have to invite them inside. You do not have to let them stay. You do not have to let them run your house. They can knock, but you choose. Feel it, but don't follow it. This is how you become emotionally bulletproof. By refusing to let temporary feelings create permanent consequences. By refusing to let inner noise override your inner discipline. By refusing to let emotional storms control your decisions. Because your life is shaped by what you do, not by what you feel. Your future is built on actions, not emotions. Your identity is defined by choices, not impulses. You control your behavior. You control your response. You control your direction. Your emotions don't get to lead anymore. You lead. This is the second pillar of mental fortitude. In Chapter 1, you learn to hold the line under pressure. In Chapter 2, you learn to separate emotion from execution. Now it's time for the next step. If emotions don't command you and pressure doesn't break you, then what becomes your foundation? Your pause, your control, your deliberate response. Asterisk, asterisk. Now that you understand your emotions are signals, not commands. Let's train the skill that makes all of this possible. Chapter 3, the discipline of pausing before you react. There is a moment, small, invisible, and easily missed, that determines the direction of your entire life. It's the moment before you react. The split-second window between stimulus and response. The gap between what happens to you and what you do next. Most people never recognize this moment. Most people blow right past it. Most people go straight from emotion to action with no space in between. And that's why their lives feel chaotic. That's why their relationships blow up. That's why their regrets pile up. That's why their emotions control them instead of the other way around. Today, that ends. This chapter is about mastering the discipline that separates the mentally strong from the mentally weak. The discipline of pausing before you react. This is the gateway skill. This is what allows everything else in this audiobook to work. This is what finally gives you control. Because when you pause, you think. When you think, you choose. When you choose, you control. Say it with me. You pause. You choose. You control. That phrase will follow you throughout this chapter, because a pause is your ultimate weapon. It's your defense against emotional impulses. It's your shield against overreaction. It's your anchor in the middle of chaos. And we're going to build that skill using one simple, powerful tactic. The 3-second rule. 3 seconds. That's all you need. 3 seconds to prevent an emotional reaction. 3 seconds to intercept your own impulsiveness. 3 seconds to rewrite your immediate instinct. Here's the rule. Stop. Breathe. Evaluate. Asterisk, asterisk. That's the sequence. That's the discipline. That's the difference between a calm mind and a chaotic one. Let's break it down. Hashtag the first second. Stop. This is a disruption. This is where you interrupt the automatic reaction that wants to take over. Someone disrespects you. Stop. Someone sends a text that triggers you. Stop. Someone challenges you, criticizes you, pressures you. Stop. Stopping creates space. Stopping prevents emotional momentum. Stopping gives you back authority over yourself. Most people never stop. They jump. They lash out. They escalate. They dramatize. And then they wonder why their lives feel like a series of fires they have to put out. But you're building discipline. You're building strength. You're building control. So when pressure hits, you stop, you pause, you choose, you control. Hashtag the second. Breathe. This is where you center yourself. This is where you pull oxygen into your body and interrupt emotional chaos. One slow inhale. One slow exhale. Breathing grounds you. Breathing lowers emotional spike. Breathing connects you back to logic. Your physiology affects your psychology. Your breath affects your mind. When you breathe, you tell your brain, I am not in danger. I am in control. Without breath, your reactions take over. Without breath, your emotions surge. Without breath, your instincts dominate your judgment. But with breath, you regain your power. With breath, you return to clarity. With breath, you keep your composure. You breathe because you're training calm. You breathe because you refuse to panic. You breathe because your breath is the bridge between emotion and control. You pause. You choose. You control. Hashtag the third second. Evaluate. This is where the intelligence comes in. This is where logic returns. This is where emotional fog begins to clear. You ask yourself simple but powerful questions. What is actually happening here? Is this worth reacting to? What outcome do I want? Will this matter tomorrow? What's the disciplined response? In the state of evaluation, you don't follow your emotions. You assess them. You don't rush. You think. You don't collapse. You calculate. And suddenly, the reaction you were about to make loses its power because you're no longer operating from impulse. You're operating from clarity. This is the moment where you regain full control. This is where maturity replaces emotion. This is where strength overrides instinct. You pause. You choose. You control. Hashtag this 3-second rule will save your life. Not literally, emotionally, mentally, socially, professionally. It will save you from arguments you don't need to have. It will save you from words you can't take back. It will save you from decisions made out of fear, insecurity, or anger. It will save you from hours, days, or weeks of mental spiraling. Because here's the truth. Almost every regret in your life came from reacting too quickly. You spoke too soon. You snapped too fast. You made the choice before thinking it through. You followed the emotion instead of the discipline. Instant reactions bypass logic. Instant reactions bypass wisdom. Instant reactions bypass maturity. Instant reactions are the enemy of mental fortitude. But the pause? The pause is the antidote. The pause is a cure. The pause is a discipline that saves you from yourself. You pause. You choose. You control. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Look at the people who constantly struggle. Look at the people whose lives are full of drama. Look at the people who are always in conflict. Look at the people who make mountains out of molehills. What do they all have in common? They react instantly. They react emotionally. They react without thought, without space, without pause. Their lack of control becomes their identity. Their lack of pause becomes their destruction. Don't model your life after people who can't control themselves. Model your life after people who master themselves. Model your life after the disciplined. Model your life after the composed. The people who build great lives aren't emotionless. They're simply not ruled by emotion. They've mastered the pause. And now you are mastering it too. You pause. You choose. You control. Hashtag, 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 the pause builds your reputation. Your reputation is shaped not by what happens to you, but by how you respond to it. When you pause, people see calm. When you pause, people see strength. When you pause, people see maturity. When you pause, people see someone in command of themselves. But when you react instantly, people see chaos. People see insecurity. People see emotional instability. People see weakness disguised as urgency. Every pause strengthens how you show up in the world. Every pause reinforces who you are becoming. Every pause builds the identity of someone emotionally bulletproof. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag this chapter is a turning point. You learned in Chapter 1 how to withstand pressure. You learned in Chapter 2 how to recognize emotions without obeying them. Now, in Chapter 3, you've learned the bridge between the two, the pause, the 3-second discipline that gives you control in the exact moment you need it most. You pause. You choose. You control. That's the mantra. That's the muscle. That's the identity. And now, you're ready for the next step. If you can hold a line under pressure and pause before reacting, then it's time for the next level of mental strength. Chapter 4. Stop giving people the power to move you. There's a weakness most people never admit to. A weakness that destroys emotional stability. A weakness that keeps you reactive, insecure, and constantly off balance. It's the weakness of giving other people the power to move you. Their comments move you. Their opinions move you. Their gossip moves you. Their criticism moves you. Their mood moves you. Their tone moves you. Their energy moves you. And every time you let someone else shift your state, you reinforce the belief that your emotions are not yours to control. You reinforce the belief that other people get to decide how you feel. You reinforce the belief that your inner world is public property. That ends now. This chapter will train one of the most essential skills in mental fortitude, the ability to stay centered, unmoved, unshaken, unbothered, no matter what someone else does. You're going to learn emotional independence. You're going to learn psychological sovereignty. You're going to learn the discipline of detachment. And the phrase you will hear again and again in this chapter is simple, powerful, and non-negotiable. They don't get access to your state. Say it again. Say it with firmness. Say it like a line you refuse to cross. They don't get access to your state. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag you break because you're wired to external validation. Most people live their entire lives addicted to how other people perceive them. They need approval. They need admiration. They need validation. They need to feel liked, accepted, acknowledged. And the problem with needing external validation is that the moment someone disapproves of you, criticizes you, or misunderstands you, your entire emotional world collapses. You experience a dip in confidence. You feel thrown off. You lose focus. You start second-guessing yourself. Why? Because your emotional foundation was built on them, not you. And when your foundation lives outside of you, your stability lives outside of you too. This is why mentally weak people always look anxious. This is why they're easily manipulated. This is why they spiral over small things. This is why they can't stay consistent. They respond not to their own standards, but to other people's reactions. They think not for forward growth, but for social approval. But mentally strong people, they operate from a different place. They operate from internal validation. They operate from personal standards. They operate from emotional autonomy. They don't need applause to act. They don't need agreement to proceed. They don't need acceptance to stay grounded, because they know they don't get access to your state. Hashtag the subtle sabotage of emotional dependency. Emotional dependency isn't loud. It's quiet. It hides inside your reactions. It hides inside your overthinking. It hides inside your need to explain yourself. It hides inside the anxiety you feel when someone disapproves. It's the person who hears gossip about themselves and instantly crumbles. It's the person who feels disrespected and loses all composure. It's the person who reads criticism and spirals into self-doubt. It's the person who changes their entire mood because someone else changed theirs. This is sabotage. This is emotional self-destruction. This is giving strangers, coworkers, family, or even random people online more power than they ever earned. And here's the truth. Most people who try to move you don't even know who they are themselves. Most people who judge you can't regulate their own emotions. Most people who criticize you are projecting their own insecurities. Most people who disrespect you do it because they're weak, not because you are. So why give people who can't control themselves the power to control you? Why let people who have no command over their life command your emotions? You know the answer. You've known it the whole time. They don't get access to your state. Hashtag the example. Someone says something about you. Let's walk through a real-world scenario. It's simple. It happens every day. Someone says something about you. Maybe it's gossip. Maybe it's shade. Maybe it's disrespect. Maybe it's a lie. Maybe it's a judgment. Instantly, your emotions spike. Your chest tightens. Your mind races. You feel the urge to defend yourself, react, lash out, or prove something. That impulse is emotional dependency. That impulse says, they have power over my state. They get to decide how I feel. They control my emotional weather. But not anymore. Here's what strength looks like. You hear the gossip and you stay centered. You hear the criticism and you stay calm. You hear the disrespect and you stay composed. Because you decided ahead of time that no one gets access to your inner state without your permission. And they don't have your permission. Not anymore. Not ever again. Why? Because your state is your responsibility. Your state is your discipline. Your state is your power. They don't get access to your state. Hashtag detachment isn't coldness. It's leadership. Some people confuse emotional detachment with being cold. They think being unbothered means being disconnected. They assume calmness means weakness or indifference. They're wrong. Detachment is leadership. Detachment is maturity. Detachment is strength. Detachment means you see the situation clearly. Detachment means you respond instead of react. Detachment means you hold the high ground. Because when you're detached, you're not flinching at shadows. You're not absorbing other people's chaos. You're not letting their insecurity infect your mind. You move with stability. You move with clarity. You move with purpose. The goal isn't to be emotionless. The goal is to be emotionally sovereign. The goal isn't to be indifferent. The goal is to be independent. The goal isn't to feel nothing. The goal is to choose what you feel. And that's what happens when you fully embrace the mantra. They don't get access to your state. Hashtag your power is measured by what moves you. If a small comment can move you, you are small inside. If minor disrespect can shake you, you have more work to do. If gossip can trigger you, you're not grounded yet. If criticism can ruin your day, you're still emotionally fragile. Your power is measured by what it takes to move you. And when you decide that nothing external gets to shift your internal state, you become unstoppable. This is mental fortitude. This is emotional armor. This is the foundation of becoming emotionally bulletproof. People can talk. People can judge. People can doubt. People can misunderstand. People can misrepresent. Let them. Let them reveal who they are. Let them speak from their insecurity. Let them project their fears. But don't let them move you. They don't get access to your state. Hashtag, 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 you're reclaiming your internal power. You learn to hold the line in Chapter 1. You learn to separate emotion from action in Chapter 2. You learn to pause before reacting in Chapter 3. Now, in Chapter 4, you've taken a deeper step. You reclaimed ownership of your emotional state. You reclaimed your internal authority. You reclaimed the power you used to give away freely. This is sovereignty. This is strength. This is control. You know the mantra. You know the identity you're building. You know what comes next. Repeat it one last time before we move forward. They don't get access to your state. Good. Now let's take the next step in becoming emotionally bulletproof. Chapter 5. Adopt a warrior's perspective on adversity. There's a reason some people crumble under adversity while others rise through it. It's not luck. It's not talent. It's not genetics. It's perspective. It's the mindset you bring to the battle. It's the meaning you attach to difficulty. Most people see adversity as a problem. Warriors see adversity as training. Most people see discomfort as a threat. Warriors see discomfort as a rep. Most people see challenge as punishment. Warriors see challenge as preparation. This chapter is about rewiring the way you interpret struggle forever. It's about shifting from victimhood to strength, from avoidance to embrace, from fear to readiness. You're going to learn the identity shift that separates the mentally fragile from the mentally elite. You're going to learn how to become the kind of person who doesn't just survive adversity. You get stronger from it. And throughout this chapter, you'll hear the mantra that defines this transformation. Hard makes you harder. Say it again. Say it with conviction. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag adversity isn't punishment. It's training. Most people believe adversity is a sign that something is wrong. They think difficulty means they're falling behind. They think challenges mean they're losing. They think struggle means they're somehow broken. That belief system keeps them weak. That belief system keeps them reactive. That belief system keeps them running from exactly what would make them stronger. But warriors? Warriors live by a different code. Warriors understand something the average person doesn't. Adversity is the gym for your mind. Pain is the weight. Pressure is the resistance. Challenges are the repetitions. Stress is the training partner. Every time life pushes against you, it's giving you a chance to build strength you didn't have before. Every difficulty is a rep that builds resilience. Every challenge is a rep that builds courage. Every setback is a rep that builds endurance. Nothing strengthens a mind like adversity. Nothing toughens a spirit like struggle. Nothing forges composure like pressure, because you're not being punished. You're being prepared. You're being trained. You're being sharpened. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the military mindset. Embrace the suck. Talk to anyone who has spent time in the military, and you'll hear a phrase repeated endlessly. Embrace the suck. It means this. Don't run from the difficulty. Lean into it. Don't resent the discomfort. Accept it. Don't hate the pressure. Use it. Why? Because the suck, the cold, the exhaustion, the stress, the uncertainty, the fear, is exactly what creates the soldier. It's what builds discipline. It's what builds unity. It's what builds capability. It's what builds mental toughness. In the military, adversity is not an obstacle to avoid. It's the environment that creates strength. You're not supposed to feel comfortable when you're becoming someone stronger. Comfort is the enemy of progress. Comfort is the enemy of resilience. When you embrace the suck, you stop wasting energy wishing things were easier. You put that energy into becoming harder instead. Because the truth is simple. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag elite athletes don't pray for ease. They pray for tests. Think about the greatest athletes you know. The ones who seem unshakable. The ones who perform under insane pressure. The ones who rise when it matters most. They're not stronger because their lives were smooth. They're stronger because they've been tested relentlessly. They've failed publicly. They've trained through pain. They've practiced through exhaustion. They perform while afraid, doubtful, hurting, stressed. They don't avoid adversity. They pursue it. They invite it. They chase it. Because every time they go through it, they get better. They get faster. They get smarter. They get stronger. They understand something crucial. You can't become elite while avoiding the things that make you elite. They don't pray for easy games. They pray for opportunities to prove their toughness. They pray for the moments that reveal their discipline. They know exactly what we're drilling into your identity. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag entrepreneurs thrive because of difficulty, not despite it. Look at the world's most successful entrepreneurs. People think they're special because they're wealthy or intelligent or visionary. But what actually makes them elite is their relationship with adversity. They solve the problems others run from. They face the chaos others panic under. They take responsibility when others hide. They stay steady while others crumble. Every failed launch, every bad month, every rejection, every financial risk, every setback, those aren't signs of failure. Those are the reps that make them strong enough to succeed. Entrepreneurs don't get good after adversity. They get good because of adversity. Every obstacle taught them something. Every mistake built their discipline. Every loss sharpened their strategy. They didn't grow in the sunshine. They grew in the storms. Because they understand the warrior's truth. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag the average mind avoids. The warrior mind absorbs. The average person says, I hope today isn't too stressful. I hope nothing goes wrong. I hope people treat me well. I hope nothing challenges me. That mindset is rooted in fear. That mindset keeps people weak, hesitant, and anxious. But the warrior mind says, whatever comes, I can handle. Pressure doesn't break me, it trains me. Life strengthens me every time it tests me. Difficulty is where I build myself. You can't become tough while avoiding the things that make you tough. You can't become resilient while running from the situations that require resilience. You can't build emotional armor if you never face emotional friction. Your strength is shaped by exposure, not avoidance. Your toughness is shaped by endurance, not escape. Your fortitude is shaped by experience, not comfort. The mindset is simple. Every hard thing makes you harder. Say it with me again. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag adversity reveals who you really are. When life gets easy, nobody sees your character. When life gets smooth, nobody sees your strength. When life is comfortable, nobody sees your discipline. Only adversity reveals the truth. Pressure reveals your habits. Stress reveals your mindset. Fear reveals your preparation. Setbacks reveal your identity. Adversity is the mirror. Adversity is a test. Adversity is the measurement. But most importantly, adversity is the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to sharpen yourself, the opportunity to evolve, the opportunity to become unbreakable. Every time you face something hard, you have a choice. Break or build, collapse or climb, surrender or strengthen. And in this audiobook, you know the answer already. You strengthen, you grow, you rise. Hard makes you harder. Hashtag this chapter is a turning point in your mental identity. You learn how to hold the line in Chapter 1. You learn how to separate emotion from action in Chapter 2. You learn how to pause before reacting in Chapter 3. You learn how to stop letting people move you in Chapter 4. Now, in Chapter 5, you've stepped into the warrior's mindset. You've learned to reinterpret adversity. You've learned to embrace difficulty. You've learned to see challenges as training. You're not running anymore. You're not avoiding anymore. You're not fearing anymore. You're leaning in. You're rising up. You're getting harder because you know the truth. Hard makes you harder. Now that you've learned how to embrace adversity, it's time to upgrade your environment. Your mind is getting stronger, but who you keep around you matters just as much. Let's go deeper. Chapter 6. The power of emotional minimalism. Life gets easier the moment you stop carrying what you don't need. Your mind gets clearer. Your decisions get sharper. Your emotions get calmer. But most people live with so much unnecessary emotional clutter that they can barely think straight. They react to everything. They attach to everyone. They ruminate over things that don't matter. They rehearse conflicts that never happened. They give energy to people who don't deserve it. This clutter drains them. This clutter weakens them. This clutter consumes their bandwidth and steals their stability. But you're building emotional fortitude. You're becoming someone who moves with intention, not noise. You're building inner order. You're building inner stillness. This chapter will teach you one of the most powerful disciplines of a mentally tough life: emotional minimalism. Fewer reactions, fewer attachments, fewer internal storms, fewer emotional leaks. Your mantra for this chapter is simple, sharp, and transformative. Less emotion, more clarity. Say it again. Less emotion, more clarity. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag you're carrying too much emotional weight. Let's start with the truth. The reason you feel overwhelmed isn't because your life is too hard. It's because your emotional load is too heavy. You're giving emotional energy to things that don't deserve it. You're carrying thoughts that do nothing but drain you. You're holding on to people who no longer serve your growth. You're reacting to situations that don't affect your long-term mission. It's not the world that's overwhelming you. It's the clutter inside your mind. Emotional minimalism is the practice of removing the unnecessary, cutting the noise, eliminating the drain, choosing focus over frenzy, choosing intention over impulse, choosing clarity over chaos. The more you remove, the stronger you become. The more you simplify, the calmer you become. The more you focus, the more powerful you become. Less emotion, more clarity. Asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag your emotional energy is a limited resource. People don't understand this. They behave as if emotional energy is infinite. They spend it recklessly. They waste it casually. They give it to anyone who asks for it. Then they wonder why they feel drained, unfocused, and inconsistent. Your emotional energy is like currency. You can invest it, you can protect it, or you can blow it on things that give you nothing back. Here's the truth. If everything affects you, nothing belongs to you. If everyone gets access to you, no one respects you. If every little thing stirs your emotions, you will never control your life. This is why minimalism matters. The fewer things you react to, the more control you regain. The fewer emotional leaks you allow, the more power you retain. The fewer attachments you cling to, the more stable you become. Less emotion, more clarity. Asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the example. Simplifying your circle. Think about the people in your life. Think about the conversations you have. Think about the energy exchanges you participate in. Do they calm you or drain you? Do they elevate you or distract you? Do they sharpen you or stress you? Most people keep circles that are far too large and far too loud. They engage with people who gossip, people who argue, people who complain, people who criticize without purpose, people who live in drama. Every one of those interactions steals a piece of your mental bandwidth. Every call, every text, every conversation pulls your energy in the wrong direction. Simplify your circle, and you simplify your emotional world. Keep fewer people, but stronger people. Engage with fewer conversations, but higher quality ones. Give your emotional access to fewer individuals, but the right individuals. This is emotional minimalism in action. This is how you cut noise and regain control. Less emotion, more clarity. Asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the power of simplifying your habits. Your habits either create emotional clutter or emotional order. Look at your daily routines. Are you consuming too much? Are you overstimulated? Are you addicted to notifications? Are you scrolling endlessly? Every input creates an emotional output. Garbage in, garbage out. Chaos in, chaos out. Noise in, noise out. When you simplify your habits, when you reduce the number of emotional triggers you expose yourself to, your nervous system calms, your attention sharpens, and your discipline grows. Wake up earlier. Reduce social media. Limit negative conversations. Cut unnecessary commitments. Streamline your environment. Minimal habits create maximal clarity. Minimal distraction creates maximal focus. Minimal noise creates maximal strength. Less emotion, more clarity. asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag the inner dialogue, your most important minimalist practice. There's one place where emotional clutter hits you hardest. Inside your own mind. You talk to yourself more than anyone else ever will. And most people live with a mental soundtrack full of doubt, fear, comparison, self-criticism, and worst-case scenarios. This is emotional clutter in its purest form. You overthink. You replay. You imagine outcomes that may never happen. You argue with people who aren't even present. You stress about problems you aren't dealing with yet. Your inner dialogue becomes a storm of unnecessary emotional noise. Emotional minimalism teaches you to simplify your self-talk. Not everything needs a story. Not every thought deserves engagement. Not every feeling needs interpretation. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say to yourself is, "Not now. This doesn't matter. This is noise." You reduce the emotional clutter, and your clarity sharpens instantly. Less emotion, more clarity, asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag minimalism doesn't make you cold. It makes you strong. Emotional minimalism isn't about shutting down your emotions. It's about eliminating emotional waste. You're not becoming cold. You're becoming focused. You're not suppressing feelings. You're controlling access. You're not ignoring problems. You're choosing which ones deserve your attention. You are no longer giving your emotional energy to things that don't matter. You are no longer carrying the weight of unnecessary attachments. You are no longer allowing your clarity to be hijacked by emotional noise. Minimalism is strength. Minimalism is discipline. Minimalism is composure. Less emotion, more clarity, asterisk, asterisk. Hashtag this chapter sharpens your entire mental system. In Chapter 1, you learn to endure pressure. In Chapter 2, you learn emotions don't dictate action. In Chapter 3, you learn to pause before reacting. In Chapter 4, you learn not to let people move your state. In Chapter 5, you learn to embrace adversity. Now, in Chapter 6, you learn something foundational. You cannot be mentally strong if your emotional world is cluttered. You are simplifying. You are refining. You are sharpening. You are cutting the emotional noise that once controlled you. Repeat the mantra one more time. Less emotion, more clarity. Good. You're ready for the next level. Your mind is quieter now, which means it's time to build the kind of consistency that separates the discipline from the average. Chapter 7. Control your attention or lose your life. Your mind will take the shape of whatever you consistently focus on. Your emotions will follow your focus. Your behavior will follow your emotions. Your life will follow your behavior. This means one thing. Attention is the foundation of everything. Your inner peace, your discipline, your confidence, your stability. All of it lives or dies based on what you give your attention to. People think they have anger issues, anxiety issues, or discipline issues. Most of the time, they have one issue, an attention problem. They're focusing on the wrong things. They're giving mental real estate to things that drain them. They're feeding thoughts that weaken them. They're pouring energy into situations they can't control. What you focus on becomes your internal reality. Your attention is your life, directed in real time. That's why the mantra of this chapter is absolute. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Say it again. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Hashtag attention, the root of emotional control. You cannot control your emotions without controlling where your attention goes. You cannot stay calm if your focus is chaotic. You cannot be disciplined if your attention is scattered. You cannot be confident if your attention is stuck on fear. Attention is the steering wheel of your mental life. If you lose control of it, everything else crashes. Emotional resilience, peace, and strength are built on the ability to direct your mind where you want to go and keep it there long enough to create stability. Most people let their attention be hijacked by notifications, drama, fear, comparison, distractions, opinions, impulses, and noise. They don't control their attention. The world does, and it shows. They feel overwhelmed because they're focusing on overwhelm. They feel anxious because they're feeding anxious thoughts. They feel insecure because they're staring at others instead of their own path. Attention is destiny. Where it goes, your life goes. Protect your focus like your future depends on it. Because it does. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag example. The problem-focused life versus the action-focused life. Let's paint two people living the same situation with completely different outcomes. Person A faces a challenge and immediately focuses on everything wrong. Why it's unfair, why it's stressful, what might go wrong, how it makes them feel, who they can blame. Their attention becomes a magnet for negativity. Their mind spirals. Their emotions escalate. Their confidence drops. Their actions freeze. Their day blows up, not because of the problem, but because of their focus. Now look at person B facing the same challenge. They focus on what they can control, what they can change, what they can learn, what actions move things forward. Their attention goes to solutions and controllables. Their emotions stay grounded. Their confidence stays intact. Their day stays stable. Their actions continue. The same situation, the same difficulty. Two completely different internal realities. Because of attention, not circumstance. The problem didn't choose the outcome. Focus did. And that's the point. Your life isn't shaped by what happens. It's shaped by what you choose to focus on. Asterisk, asterisk. Protect your focus like your future depends on it. Because it does. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag attention is a muscle, and most people have let theirs atrophy. Modern life has weakened your attention. Dopamine loops, endless scrolling, constant stimuli, all of it chips away at your ability to concentrate. You've been trained to react, not direct, to consume, not control, to chase stimulation, not purpose. Your attention span has been compromised. Your ability to hold focus has been diluted. Your capacity for stillness has been damaged. But this is where mental strength separates itself from the masses. You can rebuild your attention like a muscle. You can train it, refine it, sharpen it. And when you do, you become unstoppable. Here's what happens when your attention gets strong. You stop overthinking. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop caring about irrelevant things. You start making better decisions. You start seeing solutions clearly. You start feeling grounded, stable, in control. Attention is power. Attention is freedom. Attention is self-mastery. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. Most emotional pain comes from misplaced attention. Think about what stresses you out. Think about what makes you anxious. Think about what upsets you, frustrates you, overwhelms you. Almost all of it comes not from events, but from where you direct your attention afterward. You hurt because you replay. You worry because you imagine. You fear because you focus on the unknown. You get angry because you fixate on offense. You get insecure because you stare at comparisons. Your suffering is amplified by your focus. Your internal world becomes chaotic because your attention feeds chaos. Your emotions feel uncontrollable because your attention is uncontrollable. Shift your attention, and your emotional life transforms instantly. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the discipline. Direct attention back to what matters. This is where real strength is built, not in never getting distracted, but in constantly returning your focus to the right things. This is the repetition. This is the training. This is the mental gym. You redirect your attention again and again, from fear to action, from chaos to clarity, from emotion to execution, from distractions to priorities. Every redirection is a rep. Every rep makes you stronger. Every bit of strength gives you more control. This is how warriors, leaders, elite performers, and resilient people operate. They decide what matters, and then they keep their attention there. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag your attention determines your identity. Where your attention lives, your identity grows. If your attention stays on problems, you become a person defined by problems. If your attention stays on fear, you become someone who avoids life. If your attention stays on discipline, you become disciplined. If your attention stays on growth, you become someone who evolves. If your attention stays on priorities, you become someone who wins. Your future self is being shaped by the things you focus on today. You are literally training your identity with every thought you choose to energize. Shape your attention, and you shape your life. Shape your life, and you shape your destiny. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. Hashtag, 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 you are either distracted or dangerous. The world wants your attention. Everyone wants your focus. Everything tries to pull you off your path. That's why most people never build anything strong. They are too distracted to become dangerous. But not you. You're sharpening. You're cutting noise. You're gaining control. You're realizing that attention is the weapon of the mentally tough. Direct it with intention. Protect it with discipline. And you become someone who can't be moved, manipulated, or derailed. You become someone who commands their own mind. You become someone who shapes their own life. You become someone dangerous in the best possible way. Protect your focus like your future depends on it, because it does. You're ready for the next chapter, one that shows you how attention, discipline, and emotional control transform into the ultimate advantage. Momentum. Get ready. Chapter 8. Make consistency your new identity ****. If you want to become mentally strong, stop chasing motivation. Stop waiting for the perfect mood. Stop hoping for the right emotional state. Because the people who transform their lives, the ones who become disciplined, controlled, resilient, they aren't driven by motivation. They're driven by identity. They don't act because they feel strong. They act because they are strong. And this is the first truth you must swallow in this chapter. Consistency builds mental fortitude, not intensity, not excitement, not motivation. Consistency, ****. The person who shows up every day, especially on the days they don't feel like it, will always become stronger than the person who only shows up when conditions feel perfect. This is why the mantra of this chapter is direct and non-negotiable. Identity over feelings. Say it again. Identity over feelings. This chapter will rewire the way you think about yourself, your habits, your discipline, and your entire approach to life. Hashtag the lie of motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It spikes high and dies fast. It's emotional caffeine, temporary energy that disappears when life gets heavy. That's why you've started things and stopped them. That's why you've made promises to yourself and broken them. That's why you've had breakthroughs and then slid back into old patterns. You were relying on motivation. And motivation cannot hold the weight of transformation. You need something stronger, something stable, something unshakable. You need identity. When your identity changes, your behavior changes. And when your behavior changes, your life changes. Because identity is not emotional. Identity doesn't depend on the weather. Identity doesn't depend on mood. Identity is consistent. Identity is grounding. Identity is automatic. This is why the phrase identity over feelings matters so much. You act according to who you believe you are, not how you feel in the moment. You want mental fortitude? Then stop treating discipline as something you do. Start treating it as someone you are. Identity over feelings. Hashtag the power of small daily reps. Consistency is not glamorous. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's boring. It's repetitive. It's unsexy. But it's powerful. And it's the single biggest shortcut to becoming mentally bulletproof. Think about the person who trains every day. Not intensely. Not theatrically. Not for social media. But consistently. Quietly. Relentlessly. That person will crush the highly motivated rookie who works hard only when they feel inspired. The consistent person becomes stronger through repetition. They build endurance through boredom. They build resilience by doing what needs to be done regardless of mood. This is how mental fortitude is built, not through emotion, but through repetition. Daily reps, daily discipline, daily alignment, identity over feelings. Hashtag real-world example. The person who trains daily. You know this person. Maybe you've seen them in a gym. Maybe you've worked beside them. Maybe you've watched from a distance, wondering what they have that you don't. They're calm. They're stable. They're consistent. They show up over and over. No drama. No excuses. No mood swings. They don't argue with themselves. They don't negotiate with their emotions. They don't wait for motivation to magically appear. They've built an identity. They've told themselves, this is who I am. This is what I do. And because identity drives behavior, they act with certainty. Compare that to the motivated beginner, the one who shows up loud and excited, the one who talks big, the one who posts everything, the one who starts strong and disappears just as quickly. Motivation gives you a spark. Identity gives you endurance. Consistency gives you transformation. That's the difference. That's the gap you're closing in this chapter. Identity over feelings. Hashtag consistency rewires your brain. Every time you follow through, even when you don't feel like it, you strengthen your identity. You prove to yourself that you can rely on you. You prove that emotion does not control you. You prove that you operate on standards, not impulses. Your brain records that proof. Your nervous system registers that proof. Your habits reinforce that proof. You are building a new self-image rep by rep. You are becoming someone dependable, someone disciplined, someone stable, someone who doesn't break at the first sign of discomfort. Consistency rewires your identity. Identity rewires your emotions. Emotions stop becoming commands. They become background noise. Identity over feelings. Hashtag the emotional trap you must escape. Most people live in emotional slavery. They obey their feelings. They follow their impulses. They wait to feel ready. That mindset destroys potential. Here's the truth. Your feelings are not instructions. Your emotions are not laws. Your impulses are not obligations. They are simply reactions, temporary signals fired by your brain. And you've learned how to separate emotion from execution in earlier chapters. But now you take that skill deeper. You stop letting your feelings overrule your identity. You stop saying, I'm tired. I'm stressed. I don't feel like it. I'm not in the mood. And you start saying, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is non-negotiable. Identity over feelings. Hashtag consistency makes you emotionally untouchable. When you become consistent, something powerful happens. You stop being intimidated by discomfort. Why? Because you face discomfort daily through repetition. Consistency exposes you to stress, boredom, resistance, fatigue, and makes them normal, predictable, manageable. Your emotional tolerance rises. Your resilience expands. Your reactions shrink. Small problems stop feeling overwhelming. Big problems stop feeling impossible. This is how warriors are made, not through motivation, but through consistent exposure to effort. You don't get tougher by thinking. You get tougher by doing. Every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it. Identity over feelings. Hashtag build the identity first. Let the feelings catch up later. Here's the trick. You don't wait for confidence to be consistent. You become consistent, and confidence follows. You don't wait for discipline to show up. You act disciplined, and the feeling grows afterward. You don't wait to feel strong. You behave strong, and your identity adjusts to match your actions. Behavior creates identity. Identity shapes emotion. This is a reversal you've needed your entire life. You've been doing it backwards. You've been waiting for feelings to give you permission. You don't need permission. You need consistency. Identity over feelings. Hashtag you don't rise to your potential. You fall to your standards. Your life improves the moment your standards rise. Not your hopes, not your dreams, your standards. Standards define identity. Identity drives behavior. Behavior creates consistency. Consistency creates mastery. Mastery creates mental fortitude. This is why disciplined people look unshakable. They operate at a standard that feelings cannot touch. This is who you are becoming. Someone whose behavior is dictated by identity, not emotion. Someone whose discipline is non-negotiable. Someone who follows through because it's who they are. Identity over feelings. Hashtag your transition to the next chapter. Consistency is not glamorous. Consistency is not comfortable. Consistency is not emotional. But consistency is the foundation of everything you want. And this chapter has carved that truth into your identity. You're no longer the person who waits for motivation. You're the person who follows through. Every day. No exceptions. You've claimed a new identity. One that no feeling can steal. Now let's take that identity and push it even further. Let's talk about the next layer of mental fortitude. The discipline of controlling your internal narrative. Chapter 9. The strength of strategic silence, ****. There's a level of power most people will never access because they're too loud, too reactive, too eager to respond, too determined to defend themselves. They talk when they should observe. They argue when they should detach. They react when they should hold still. This chapter introduces you to a discipline only the mentally strong ever master. Strategic silence. Silence is not weakness. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not surrender. Silence is control. Silence is clarity. Silence is dominance. And the mantra you will hear again and again in this chapter is simple and powerful. Not every battle deserves your voice. Say it again. Not every battle deserves your voice. Because when you understand the strength of silence, you stop wasting energy, you stop feeding conflict, and you begin to build an internal authority that no one can shake. Hashtag most people speak to prove themselves. You don't need that anymore. Look around. People argue constantly. They explain themselves constantly. They defend every opinion, every decision, every emotion. Why? Because they think talking is strength. They think reacting is power. They think noise equals relevance. But the truth is the opposite. People who need to respond instantly are emotionally controlled. People who need to argue are insecure. People who need to defend every point don't believe in their own conviction. Silence shows you don't need validation. Silence shows you're not bothered. Silence shows you operate on a different level. Not every battle deserves your voice. And when you internalize that, you stop wasting your breath on nonsense. You stop bleeding energy into arguments that don't matter. You stop letting external noise disrupt your internal peace. That's how emotional giants are made. Through restraint, through control, through silence. Hashtag silence protects your energy. Your energy is not infinite. You cannot pour yourself into every conversation, every conflict, every provocation. If you try, you burn out. You weaken. You lose control. Silence is how you protect your energy. Silence is how you filter what deserves your attention. Silence is how you choose your battles. Every argument costs energy. Every reaction costs energy. Every defensive explanation costs energy. And the mentally tough understand this. Not every battle deserves your voice. Some discussions are traps. Some arguments are dead ends. Some provocations are bait. Some conflicts are designed to drain you, not resolve anything. Silence saves your strength. Silence allows you to conserve power for what matters. Silence keeps you from fighting battles that lead nowhere. When you choose silence, you're not shutting down. You're leveling up. Hashtag silence prevents regret. Most regrets come from things said too quickly. Impulsive reactions. Emotional explosions. Words thrown out before the brain had time to evaluate. When you speak in emotion, you create damage. When you speak in anger, you escalate conflict. When you speak in fear, you limit yourself. Strategic silence gives you space. Space to think. Space to analyze. Space to breathe. Silence is the pause where logic catches up. Silence is the buffer that protects your future self. Silence is the gap where wisdom forms. When you choose silence, you prevent unnecessary battles. When you choose silence, you eliminate impulsive mistakes. When you choose silence, you avoid saying things that fracture relationships or your own integrity. This chapter's mantra becomes your filter. Not every battle deserves your voice. Hashtag example. Holding silence instead of reacting. Imagine someone tries to provoke you. They insult you. They criticize you. They question your intelligence, your character, your effort. Most people react immediately. Heated, defensive, emotional. The provoker gets exactly what they want. Your attention, your energy, your reaction. Now imagine you respond with silence. No anger, no explanation, no argument, no emotional spike. Just silence. A calm, steady, unbothered silence. What happens? You hold the power. You hold the frame. You hold your dignity. The other person loses their leverage because you refuse to play the game. That's internal dominance. That's emotional mastery. That's the strength of someone who knows. Not every battle deserves your voice. You win simply by not engaging. Hashtag silence is a form of self-respect. Some conversations are beneath you. Some arguments are beneath you. Some people are beneath the level of peace you're building. Silence is how you protect your integrity. Silence is how you keep your mind clean. Silence is how you uphold your standards. You don't argue with foolishness. You don't respond to pettiness. You don't engage with emotional chaos. Why? Because you respect yourself too much. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to clarify everything. You don't need to participate in every emotional storm. You rise above it. You preserve your energy. You act with intention. And you repeat the mantra until it's instinctive. Not every battle deserves your voice. Hashtag silence builds internal dominance. Internal dominance is the ability to control your own state, regardless of what's happening around you. It's the ability to stay steady when someone else is chaotic, calm when someone else is emotional, quiet when someone else is loud. Silence is the foundation of that dominance. Silence trains your emotional restraint. Silence strengthens your mental clarity. Silence reinforces your confidence. When you choose silence, you are telling yourself, I control me. I decide what gets my attention. I decide what deserves my involvement. This is power. This is authority. This is mastery. And mastery is built in silence, not in noise. Hashtag you don't need to be understood to be in control. Here's a hard truth. People crave being understood. They chase it. They fight for it. They bleed themselves dry trying to explain their point of view. But mentally strong people understand this. Being understood is optional. Being in control is essential. Your peace does not depend on people understanding you. Your stability does not depend on people agreeing with you. Your strength does not depend on people validating you. You owe no one a justification. You owe no one a constant explanation. You owe no one access to your emotional world. Your silence sends a message. I do not need your approval. I am not moved by your opinion. I choose my involvement carefully. Not every battle deserves your voice. Hashtag silence gives you tactical advantage. In silence, you gather information others miss. You read the room. You analyze motives. You observe behavior. You study intention. Silence lets you see the truth behind people's words. Silence reveals who is emotional, who is manipulative, who is desperate for reaction. Silence exposes what noise hides. Talking reveals your strategy. Silence reveals theirs. This gives you an edge, a cognitive edge, an emotional edge, a strategic edge. Not every battle deserves your voice, because the silence wins more battles than words ever could. Hashtag you're becoming someone who speaks with purpose, not impulse. The old you reacted too quickly. The old you defended too much. The old you spilled too much energy into meaningless conversations. But that version is gone. You're stepping into a higher form of self-control, a calmer form of strength. You're learning to use silence like a weapon, with precision, with intention, with discipline. You don't react anymore. You respond when necessary. You speak when it matters. You conserve your energy for moments of purpose, because you finally understand not every battle deserves your voice. Hashtag your transition to the next chapter. You've learned one of the most underrated forms of mental fortitude, strategic silence. Silence protects you. Silence strengthens you. Silence elevates you. Now you're ready for the next level of emotional mastery, the skill that transforms silence into power and power into momentum. In the next chapter, we move from silence to strategy. We shift from holding back to directing your full force toward what matters most. Chapter 10, The Emotionally Bulletproof Life ***. There comes a moment in every transformation where you stop, try to be stronger, and you simply are stronger, where you stop forcing discipline, and discipline becomes your default, where emotional control is no longer a technique you practice, but a state you live in. This chapter is the vision, the finish line, the destination you've been building toward since the beginning of this audiobook. This is the emotionally bulletproof life. Steady, unshakable, unbothered by noise, chaos, or pressure. A life where your mind is not a battlefield anymore, but a fortress. And throughout this final chapter, you'll hear the phrase that defines the transformation you completed. This is who you'll become. Because you are no longer becoming. You are now being. Hashtag you walk through life with unshakable calm. There's a calm that comes when you no longer give your emotions the steering wheel. A calm that shows up in your posture, in your breathing, in your presence. A calm people notice, even if they can't explain it. Your reactions no longer own you. Your feelings no longer dictate your behavior. Your impulses no longer override your judgment. You don't explode. You don't spiral. You don't get thrown off by minor inconveniences or emotional waves. You stand steady, centered, grounded. A storm can be raging around you, and you're still thinking clearly, still acting deliberately, still making decisions from strength, not fear. This is calm that was built through discipline, silence, focus, and control. This is calm earned through the mental reps of adversity. This is calm created by detachment from validation and chaos. And as you feel this calm settle into the core of who you are, you say the line that marks your evolution. This is who you have become. Hashtag your relationships transform because you are no longer reactive. When you become emotionally bulletproof, your relationships shift, not because others changed, but because you changed. You stop feeding arguments. You stop chasing validation. You stop over-explaining and overreacting. You listen more. You observe more. You choose your words with intention. People can't manipulate you with guilt anymore. People can't control you with pressure anymore. People can't distort your peace with emotional outbursts anymore. You become the stable one, the grounded one, the predictable in-strength one. Instead of adding fire to conflict, you remove oxygen from it. Instead of escalating battles, you redirect them. Instead of losing your temper, you hold your standards. You're no longer afraid of losing people because you're too busy respecting yourself. In relationships, romantic, personal, professional, people treat you differently when they realize their chaos doesn't move you. Respect increases. Drama decreases. Boundaries strengthen. This new relational life, this new dynamic of strength, this is who you have become. Hashtag your work and ambition becomes sharper, cleaner, stronger. When emotions stop derailing you, your performance skyrockets. Your focus becomes deadly sharp. Your execution becomes consistent. Your goals stop feeling overwhelming and start feeling inevitable. No more procrastination based on mood. No more quitting because of doubt. No more hesitation because of fear. You train when it's hard. You work when you don't feel like it. You move forward whether or not your emotions approve. You become the kind of person who shows up when others break down. The kind of person who doesn't fold under pressure. The kind of person who treats adversity as training. You stay locked in on what matters. You ignore distractions without effort. You hold yourself to a higher standard, not out of punishment, but out of identity. This is how careers accelerate. This is how businesses grow. This is how goals get completed. And every time you execute with clarity and discipline, you'll feel the internal shift, the quiet confidence, the powerful recognition. This is who you have become. Hashtag your inner dialogue changes from doubt to authority. One of the greatest transformations in emotionally bulletproof life is internal. Your mind stops being your enemy. Your thoughts stop sabotaging you. Your inner critic stops running the show. You speak to yourself differently now. You motivate yourself differently. You correct yourself differently. The voice in your mind becomes firm but fair, direct but grounded, disciplined but supportive. When fear shows up, you answer with strategy. When insecurity shows up, you answer with truth. When weakness shows up, you answer with action. Self-control becomes second nature. Self-respect becomes instinctive. Self-belief becomes unshakable. You no longer need external validation. You no longer need emotional comfort. You no longer need reassurance from anyone. Your internal world has become the strongest place you stand. No cracks, no distortions, no emotional chaos. This is the internal authority you built through every chapter of this journey, and you feel it with every decision you make. This is who you have become. Hashtag life feels cleaner, simpler, stronger. When emotional noise fades away, life becomes clear. You see what matters. You discard what doesn't. You move with purpose instead of confusion. You're not drained all the time. You're not overwhelmed all the time. You're not reacting all the time. You're strategic. You're intentional. You're steady. Your circle gets smaller but stronger. Your days get quieter but more productive. Your goals get fewer but more meaningful. What once stressed you out now barely registers. What once rattled you now feels irrelevant. What once broke you now strengthens you. This is a life that emerges when emotions stop controlling your decisions. This is a life created by mental fortitude and emotional discipline. This is a life on the other side of struggle. And standing in this clarity, this simplicity, this grounded strength, you repeat the truth. This is who you have become. Hashtag you become the person people look at and say, how are they so calm? People will notice. They won't understand, but they'll feel it. They'll feel your presence. They'll feel your steadiness. They'll feel your control power. You won't need to brag. You won't need to prove anything. Your composure will speak for you. Challenges that overwhelm others won't move you. Drama that consumes others won't touch you. Pressure that crushes others won't break you. You've built something rare, something valuable, something few ever achieve. You've built emotional armor. You've built mental steel. You've built a bulletproof inner world. And the world will see it, not because you tell them, but because you live it. You've earned this peace. You've earned this power. You've earned this transformation. Say it again, slowly, with full conviction. This is who you have become. Hashtag your transition to the closing. You've arrived at the final chapter with a new identity. Calm, composed, unshakable. You've learned the skills. You've built the discipline. You've created the internal strength that can't be taken from you. Now it's time to seal this transformation with the closing challenge. The final message that ensures this doesn't fade, doesn't slip, doesn't weaken. You are ready for the last piece of this audiobook. The final push. The final declaration. Move now to the closing. The challenge that locks an emotionally bulletproof life. You've just learned the blueprint for becoming emotionally bulletproof. You've learned how to stop breaking under pressure, how to separate emotion from action, how to pause, how to detach, how to embrace adversity, and how to protect your mind from anything that threatens your focus or your peace. You've built the awareness to recognize emotional impulses and a discipline to refuse to follow them. You understand now that your strength isn't loud, it's controlled, it's intentional, it's unshakable. From this point forward, you don't react, you evaluate. You don't collapse, you stabilize. You don't break, you build strength. This is your new identity. Steady, focused, untouchable. Now the challenge is simple. Live it. Every day, every choice, every reaction. Prove to yourself that you are no longer controlled by emotion. You control you. Now go. Become the person who cannot be moved.